Are you looking to expand your aesthetic practice and attract high-quality new patients? Discover the power of digital marketing in growing your practice with a personalized strategy session. Schedule your meeting today by visiting www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM and take the first step towards transforming your practice with the potential of digital marketing.
You're invited to join our exclusive monthly webinar brought to you by the Business of Aesthetics community. Don't let this chance slip through your fingers. Secure your spot now for a game-changing experience. Register for free on our homepage at www.businessofesthetics.org and get set to transform your strategies.
You are listening to another episode of the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsor, Ekwa Marketing. If you would like to network and share your experience with our podcast guests and other aesthetic industry professionals, join our Facebook or LinkedIn communities by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our passionate host, Dana Zeitler. Dana has over 3 decades of expertise in the dynamic world of aesthetics as the founder and CEO of Deluxe Medspa. Over to you, Dana.
Hi. So my name is Dana Zeitler, and I'll be your host this evening. And welcome to the Business of Aesthetics live webinar. The topic of the day will be starting a new clinic, and here's how to market it successfully. And I want to say a special thank you to the sponsors of this episode, Ekwa Marketing. They have nearly 20 years of experience. Ekwa Marketing is a leader in the digital marketing services for aesthetic practices, and Ekwa provides a range of services such as website creation and maintenance, call tracking services, SEO optimization, paid advertising, and much, much more. So without further ado, our speakers for this evening are Naren Arulrajah, I'm trying to say that correctly, co-founder of the Business of Aesthetics and CEO of Ekwa Marketing, and then also Shelly Schultz, who I've been getting to know. She is brilliant director of sales of Ekwa Marketing. And I want to have everybody please send in your questions, and our speakers will answer them if time prevents at the end of the session. So let's get started. Naren, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and all about your company.
Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate you hosting this event, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to be having today. So a little bit about myself. I got fired 4 times in a row. That forced me to become an entrepreneur. So I finally realized this is going back 2001 that I cannot work for somebody else just because I can't keep my mouth shut. I speak my mind, and that gets me in trouble. So that's my origin story, so to speak. And the first 5 years I was struggling. And then one day a doctor who I was trying to convince to work with me on a different project convinced me to do his marketing for him because he realized we were really, really good at SEO and digital marketing. So that's going back 2007. So first 5 years we struggled. Then we stumbled on this idea of helping healthcare practices do well with SEO and digital marketing, and that's the founding of Ekwa. Ekwa, by the way, stands for being in the moment. It's a word that I first heard from the Canadian Olympian Clara Hughes, who talked about that word and how, when she's competing, whether it's on the Summer Olympics or in the Winter Olympics, she's one of the few people who won medals on both. She just focuses on just being in the moment, she's with the ice, as opposed to worrying about what other people are expecting and the cheering and the booing and all the other stuff that goes on around us. So I thought that was inspirational, and the name was available. So that's the name of Ekwa. So that's a little bit about me. I get bored easily, so I'm always dabbling into different things. So we have created the Business of Aesthetics community, and that's going extremely well. We have 35,000 people in our community today. The largest, if not one of the largest podcasts in aesthetics. We do lots of events, the Aesthetic Institute. So I'm involved in multiple projects. I love what I do, and part of what we try to do is to give back. And hopefully this is one of those, events or venues to kind of educate and bring some experience and knowledge from, what we know, having helped, hundreds of practices over the years.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm excited to talk with you because it's been a hot moment since we've gotten to share. And Shelly, please tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're relatively new to Ekwa, so tell us a little bit about your background.
I am. I'm really excited to be working with Naren and Co. over at Ekwa. I've been here just a few months, and already I'm just so impressed. It's wonderful to join, as it says here. I've spent over 20 years in electronic record management, practice management software, and adjacent to that, I've worked with a lot of doctors and practitioners over the years on opening their new clinics, because that's one of the first choices that you make. And I spent a lot of time doing that and consulting and working with people. So I'm really excited about today's subject and going into it, because there are so many things that you can do out of the gates that are really correct for your endeavor that will really help give you a leg up. And it's a great, I'm so glad that everybody came and is joining in, and hope we can really provide some good advice.
Wonderful. So I didn't introduce myself completely. So I'm a med spa. My name's Dana Zeitler. I did say that, but I'm a med spa owner in Naples, Florida. So I've been a PA for 30 years. I've been doing aesthetics for 15. I've been a business owner for 7. So a little bit about my background. But I want to get into first area of discussion. So right to it, we're going to talk about building a strong foundation. And Naren, what are the key foundations for a successful clinic? So can you share a little bit with your experience on that?
Absolutely. I think there are a few components of a successful clinic, and I'm going to touch on 4 key components. I think the number one component, in my experience, having helped practice owners for the last 17 years, is a patient experience. Like, what do you want people to think of you and talk about you when you're not in the room? So is it you are the most friendly? Is it you use the latest technology? Is it you stand behind your work? Whatever that is that you want people to say about you, that is your patient experience. It's easy to take care of one person and easy to do things when you are the only person in the practice. But as you grow and as you scale and you have a team, how do you do that when you're not there? You're on vacation, but your patient experience should be the same, right? You're not answering the phone, but your patient experience should be the same. So really get some clarity around what your experience is going to be and what you want people to say about you, and then make sure you are putting in place the processes to be able to execute on that. And then finally, you have to check in, you have to audit, because, just because you wish it doesn't happen. It's almost like, you send your kids to school, then you have to look at their report cards. You have to see what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, help them when they need help. So the kind of the same way, you are the parent of the practice as the founder, owner of the practice. So you have to define it and then make sure it happens. The second point that I want to mention is you can't do any practice or any business, including an aesthetic practice, without a team. So you need a strong team and a culture. Culture is like, how do people behave, especially your team, when you're not there? And whether you like it or not, culture is getting created. If your culture is stuff people in the back and undermine each other, then that's your culture, right? So how do you, for example, create a culture that's constructive and productive and something that you're proud of, something that patients love to be part of, as opposed to, oh, I hate going there, and which means they're going to write those nasty reviews and they're not going to show up. The third part of, I think, a strong practice is a machine that continues to bring in new patients, right? That's what we call marketing. And the reason that's important is, in 2024, more so than ever, the competition is, as high as it can be, especially in aesthetics. So if you're not able to drive new patients, you are not going to grow, because actually, not only you're not going to grow, you're going to shrink, because every business is going to lose customers. People move, people pass away, even if you are the best in the world and your experience is amazing. So you need to have a way of bringing in new clients, new patients. That way your practice continues to grow, right? Our expenses go up, our costs go up. So if you're not growing, you are dying. So marketing, I think, is the third component of this. And finally, a clear vision and focus. You can't be everything to everybody. I have, worked with all kinds of practice owners, dermatologists, plastic surgeons, even within each one of those categories, there are unique differences. Like there might be a dermatologist who's only focused on cosmetics versus somebody else who's aesthetic, somebody else who does both. Then med spa owners. And again, within med spas, there are all kinds of med spas. There are those med spas, that might be all about, the face and so forth versus, some people are much more into nutrition and health and, wellness. So you have to really clearly define who you are and what you want to be. And be true to that. Doesn't mean you can't change. It doesn't mean you can't evolve, but you need a focus because you want to be something to somebody as opposed to nothing to nobody, right? If you're nothing to nobody, you're everything to everybody, you won't have a following, you won't have a fan base, you won't have a thriving business. So those are the 4 components that I think every successful practice should focus on.
Yeah, I love that of really focusing in on who your ideal client is or who your ideal customer is and speaking to their pain points and what you're passionate about. Because I know there are med spas that are passionate about women's health and doing more hormone and wellness. And then there's people that, like myself, I focus mainly on facial aesthetics and lasers. So really, if you're a new practice, what are you passionate about? What do you love doing? And those are things that will very easily help you decide who your ideal client is so that you know who to market to. So Shelly, the next question is, I hear that you believe the correct partners are key. Can you share what you mean by that?
Sure. There are the obvious partners. When somebody thinks that they're going to open a clinic or a practice of any kind, even if you're mobile, you have to have some kind of partner. So that I think the obvious ones would be your financial partners, obviously. How are you going to get this off the ground? Speaking of finances, you're going to want to partner up very early with a good accountant. I truly believe your build partner, your contractor, you want to be working with people that are really they share your vision, they share your goal, and they actually care about what you're doing. There's each one of these people, including your supplier, each one of these people, there's so many that you can choose from. Make sure that you have somebody that you can sync up with well, that you get along with well. And I'll probably say this a couple of times, and of course I'm in sales. When you get into those kinds of people in the sales, you would be amazed at how much information you can glean from them. So lean into that, right? So if you find somebody that you really get along with well, take that to heart, right? It's not all about the costs of those people. And then I think that Naren touched on this, and it's the front desk and the people that you're going to hire for administration. And I think something that I've watched people do is sort of take that lightheartedly. We'll get somebody, what I hear is we'll get a girl at the front desk and maybe she can work part-time. And I would argue that that is actually one of your larger things, because while you're providing treatments to people, doing things, that's the person that's the face of your practice. That's the person that's going to be taking treatment plans forward. That's the person who's going to be doing follow-up. That's the person who's going to be doing a lot of contact with your patients. And I think that it's really important to have somebody that you can see working with you long-term, and somebody that is going to be able to work with all of those initial partners that you have that can take your place while you work on building your practice. And then I think, of course, you need to start with some kind of CRM or software. You have to have something. Maybe it's not specific for your industry, and I have a surprise. That's okay to start with. Maybe you don't want to lean into all kinds of fancy stuff and get directly into everything that you can do digitally, sort of idea. Maybe you just start with a free HubSpot account, but keep track of where your patients are, where they're coming from. If you're starting super small, I cannot tell you how important that is. Keep notes about those patients so that they can get star service each time they come in. If they tell you something that they love on their first visit, track that information, right? So is that a partner? Absolutely. Your CRM is a partner for you. The vast majority of them are going to be able to be uploaded somewhere, but don't rely on hand notes and Excel spreadsheets. Really, truly lean into that. And then the final one, of course, is your marketing agency, right? So you get one shot at coming out of the gates. You want everything to look good. You want it to reflect you. You want to be building your SEO and your reputation early on, right? Start it even before your doors open for the first day, because you want to have that calendar full. And I would say that those are the partners that we really need to think about and lean into when we're thinking about starting a practice or a clinic of any kind.
Very, very important. And the one thing that what you didn't mention is legal stuff. So
You
we
are
really
right.
want to,
Yep.
and I know that Naren has done other webinars with some legal experts. There's some excellent ones in the
Mhm.
previous episodes if anybody wants access, but wonderful information from on the Business of Aesthetics website about legal things to think about when
That
you're in your clinic.
so very, very true. And then I would say too, Dana, to stay away from people who offer you all of that in one package,
Yeah.
right?
And yeah, and I agree with the front desk. I think that they are the director of first impressions, you know.
Yeah.
So really when somebody calls your office, if they have a bad experience, or even if they come in and they're not treated with that amazing, you know, excellent customer service, it is a reflection. So it's so very important. So I want to reiterate that. So Naren, next question is for you. Why is marketing, I mean, we've already talked about it a little bit, but can you take a deeper dive into, I think there might be a case study about why marketing is so crucial for a new clinic?
Yeah, I mean, let's kind of get down to basic numbers that make up a practice. A practice has expenses and then it has revenues. Expenses are your fixed expenses like your rent, even your team members, because they are on a salary. Even if you see one patient or 100 patients, you have those fixed expenses. And then you have variable expenses. So for example, Botox, you know, the more Botox you inject, the more you need to spend. And some of the fixed expenses also could be investments you make in technology. You're buying a laser and that's costing you, let's say, $100,000 or, you know, $2,000 in monthly payments. So for you to be able to pay all your expenses, you need revenue, right? So how do you generate revenue? You generate by providing services to your patients. Now, every client, you know, has a value to your practice. For example, if you do your job right, they are going to keep coming back, you know, for years and years and years. So you can figure out what's the average value of a new client, a new patient. So let's say, you know, I'm just using some simple examples. Let's say your expenses are $80,000 a month. That is $960,000 a year, 80,000 times 12. And you're making 100,000 in revenue, right? So 100,000 times 12 is 1.2 million. So your profit is $240,000. So the key for, I mean, why marketing is critical is because marketing is what brings in those patients who are, let's say, worth $3,000 for you every year. So if you want to grow your business, you need to grow the number of new patients. Now, that alone is not enough. One of the things you have to also make sure is those people who come in love your practice. They stay loyal. They keep coming back. Because if you have a practice where they come in once but never come back again, then you have a problem. It's like you're bringing in, think of like a big bucket. You're pouring water into the bucket, but there's a hole on the bottom of the bucket. And then all the water that you're putting in, which is the new patients you're bringing in, just keep walking out the back door. So you want to make sure that, while you provide the great patient experience with the help of an awesome team, like we already touched on, you are always filling that bucket. Now, the challenge is, are you getting the right people? Because every practice is different. Every practice is unique. We touched on that. So based on, who you are, what you want to be known for, who you are attracting, are you able to bring in the right patients? Where I find, people struggle is, this idea of feast and famine. We see this with consultants. They're busy working, trying to get clients. Now, when they get the clients, they're busy taking care of the clients. And now when they're taking care of the client, they don't focus on getting new clients. So what happens? Their revenue goes down again. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting back into the famine mode. They're barely making it. So you want a marketing engine that continues to bring in new patients, whether you are putting a lot of time and effort into it or not. Ideally, you should put a little bit of time and effort, not a lot, because you have bigger fish to fry, which is the patient experience, which is finding and recruiting and building an awesome team and an awesome culture, which is making smart decisions for your practice so it continues to grow. So you need a marketing machine that consistently brings in the right number of right patients every single month. I know social media is very powerful in 2024, but it's not for everyone, because if you are not if you don't love being in front of the camera and creating content on a regular basis, then social media may not be for you, because I know a lot of doctors, they don't want to be in front of the camera. They just want to practice medicine. So, again, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, because, I think there's many ways to, accomplish the same goal. So, so whatever that makes sense, make sure you're creating a marketing machine that consistently brings in those new patients, because that's the lifeblood of your future success.
Yeah, and I agree about social media. Even if people find you on social media, they're probably going to vet you on your website. So you still have to have that website up to par, because they're going to look at that. They're going to look at your online reviews, and they're even if you attract them to click on you on social media, you need that process in place to get their email address and make that phone call. And one thing that I've shared with my team when you were talking about ROI for new patients is it costs every patient, when that phone rings and somebody is booking an appointment and they've never been at my office, that was money that I have invested so that they will call the office and make the phone call. And so it's imperative that back to that whole patient experience.
And I think one thing to quickly add to what you said, the average practice only books 1 out of 3 new patients.
Yeah.
And it's so scary. Like, I've listened to hundreds of calls, and sometimes I play these calls to practice owners, and they just can't believe what's going on the phone. And they assume it's going great, right? We all assume, everything is great, but we don't really look, so we don't know. So the minute you start looking and you start realizing you might be exceptional, like you might not be the average, you might be converting 80% of the callers into appointments, but if you are the average and you're only booking 1 out of 3, like Dana said, you're wasting a lot of money that's being invested in marketing. Because you're paying for the whole 100 new patients, but only 30 of them end up showing up. So now the other 70 people who don't show up, you're still paying for them, even though they never show up to your practice.
Yeah, no, you're paying for that website click, and you're paying for that telephone to ring, for sure.
Yes.
So speaking of ideal patients, building on that, how can we tailor our marketing messages to resonate with specific segments of our target audience?
Yeah, I think the way I think about marketing, I know there's a lot of complexity around marketing and a lot of different ways of, a lot of different pundits saying different things. For me, marketing is doing a good job if it helps the right people find you at the right time, right? Let's say I have a wedding coming up and I want to, look a certain way, and I feel like, let's say I'm the, mom or the dad of the groom or whatever, and this is important day for me, so I'm willing to spend the money and time and effort to, just like we get new clothes and everything else, we might want to do certain things to, because of that event happening, or it could be a new job, or could be just maintenance, right? Like maintaining the way you look and, young and fresh. And because, you might have a job where that's important for you to be taken seriously. So whatever your motivation is as a customer, or whatever the customer's motivation is, you want to help those people find you at the right time. And then once they find you, you want to help them choose you. That's what marketing is. And the difference between marketing and one-on-one sales is you're doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in front of thousands of people, as opposed to one by one by one. Because in the old days, we would walk off of a street into a storefront and ask questions. Now we don't do that. We make our decisions before we ever pick up the phone, before we ever, walk into your location. So how can marketing help the right people find you? Because if they don't find you, they can't choose you. And then once they find you, then how does marketing help the right people choose you? So to me, that's what marketing is. And that's what I think we should really try to master. Of course, finding is about, like a lot of people start researching and they use Google. 90% of people today, when they find an aesthetic practice, they start by researching on Google. So, hey, when they're using Google, are you showing up? That's the finding piece. And then the second piece is choosing you. Now that you showed up, how are your Google reviews? How are your before and afters? How are your videos? Is it compelling? Do they feel comfortable with you even before they pick up the phone and call? Because they are making that judgment, and that judgment decides whether the phone is ringing or not ringing. So both helping people find you and then using psychology and influence principles to help those people choose you.
No, I agree. It's that, what do they say it? The like, know, and trust, where, they like you and then they trust you, or they getting to know you and then they trust you. And that is built both on social media, on your website, through those reviews, through testimonials. And I love how you said, kind of finding out what they're wanting, like somebody getting married, but what do they want? Do they want clear skin? Do they want to be wrinkle-free, more confident, natural? So, finding out what they want to achieve and you proving that you can give them what they want. So,
yeah, and just real quick, speaking of a case study, the co-founder of Business of Aesthetics was actually one of my clients. He started working with us back in 2011. So that's, I guess, 13 years ago. His name is Jeff Richmond, and he's the founder of a very successful med spa in Portland, Oregon, called Thrive Portland. And we have been working with him since then. When he first approached me, he heard of us through Dr. Mary Lupo, who's a legend in dermatology, and he is a good friend of Dr. Lupo. And Dr. Lupo is like, you should talk to Naren, and we started working with him. And his request of me is, I spend $100,000 a year on marketing. I spend on ads mostly, and I think that's too much. Can you do something about it? I'm like, yes, we can help you get double the patients at a fraction of the cost. And that's how we started building a relationship. And then even now he's a client and his practice does extremely well. It's a tiny practice, but very, very profitable. What I mean by tiny as in number of employees. He keeps it really tight. And, there's a doctor and a few other people, but they crush it. So, I mean, the advantage of proper marketing is not only does it drive your economic engine, your revenue engine, but also if it's done right, it can save you a lot of money. In his case, his patient volume doubled, but his costs also went down by 50%. So he got a 4x benefit because he just changed the way he did marketing. He went from ads to a CEO. So anyways, that's the case study that I thought I should share.
Well, I also think the beginning stages of a practice, you're going to need to budget more money for marketing up in the beginning. And as time goes on, hopefully you can spend a little bit less because, you've earned that reputation and, you got to get the word out that you're there. Shelly, you're in front of sales. So you need to know your target customer. Do you have any tips on honing in on your desired demographic?
For sure. And we've hit on this a few times already in this conversation, and it's going to keep repeating itself because it's one of the most important things that to what I think, if you're going to start marketing, if you're going to start spending money, you have to figure out who your ICP is. So we talked about ICP. Does our audience necessarily know what that is? I don't know. I've worked in B2B for a long time. B2B means business to business. So one of the big words that you hear in business to business is ICP, and that's your ideal customer profile. You already referred to it, Dana. It's dramatically important. Who do you want to be? Who are you serving? Who do you want to be coming into the office? You can say, my marketing reached 100 people, but if only 5 of those people were actually who you want to draw into your office, what good were the other 95? So you want to be bringing in people that are your demographic. If you're looking for those people who are looking for weddings, you want people that are one at a time, and some people do. Then you want to be marketing for those kinds of things. If you want people that are going to be long-term repeat customers, you want to be marketing to those kinds of people. If you have a certain kind of age demographic, then you want to be hitting that demographic and where they're looking for things and what they're looking for, which then we're leaning into all of the keywords that come with SEO. And that's where all of it starts to tie in, and it starts to become that circle of how things are feeding each other. So that's what I would say. First, right out of the gates, is make sure you know who you're trying to market to, and don't try to be everything to everybody. That's not possible. As Naren referred to at the very beginning of this conversation, competition is at a place that it has never been before in almost every industry, and certainly this one. So if you're not doing that honing in and you're not being true to yourself, it's good. You're going to suffer for it. And then I'm going to put in one more thing about that CRM, Dana. Track where they're coming from. Ask your people where they're coming from. We're talking about that partner front desk. That front desk should be asking, hey, how did you hear about us today? Where did you come from? Track that, because sometimes it's really surprising where they saw you. And what I found, both anecdotally and proven by data, is that we might think that they're coming from one place, but they're often coming from another place. And you can always say, where did you come from? Referrals are fantastic, but did you have a referral after you saw us from the website? Find those pieces of information out, because it will really help you decide where you're going to lean into and spend money.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I always think about what my ideal client does to, where do they exercise? Where do they shop? Where are they playing? We're in South Florida. So where are they playing golf or tennis? Where are they eating? What restaurants? So, those are things that I think about when I want to really focus in on my ideal patient and, what age are they? So are they seasonal? Are they here, 2 months out of the year? Or are they here full time? Those are all really, really good questions.
With that, right? There's a big argument for having your front desk be your ideal customer profile, right? Who is your ideal patient? There's a really big argument for that, because then people are walking in and talking to people that immediately they strike a balance with, because they've got something in common. So that's something to think about when you're hiring, is to think about your demographic and who you're trying to serve, and maybe lean into that for hiring.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I love that one. So, Naren, what are 2 or 3 essential elements every aesthetic practice?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I lost Dana.
At least Dana froze in a flattering pose, because sometimes it can be unflattering. Let's see. I think I can fill in here, Naren, because I do have a list of Dana's questions.
Okay.
And her next one is, what are the 2 to 3 essential elements that every aesthetics practice should prioritize to establish a strong online presence that attracts new patients from the start? Did that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Perfect.
And please interrupt me when Dana comes back.
You gotcha, I will.
Thank you. Yeah, so the question is, what are 2 or 3 essential elements that every aesthetic practice owner should prioritize in order to, have a strong online presence and attract new patients? Remember, I said marketing is about A, helping the right people find you, and then B, helping them choose you. So how do you help them find you? So you have options. You can run ads. So that's one way you can help people find you. The second thing you can do is you can, show up organically. Again, organically meaning you're not paying to be showing up, but rather you earn the right to show up. Okay, of course, you can use social media, or you can use search engine optimization. Social media, in my experience, belongs to the top 1%. Why? Because Facebook doesn't make money when they give free traffic to people. So they restrict the amount of people who get the free traffic, and they give it to the 1% influencer class, right? So in the old days, you are the Oprah, but today there are a lot of Oprahs on Instagram, meaning they have 100,000 followers. So you can be in that 1% and get free traffic, or you can pay for social media ads. Or you can be in the top 5% and get free Google traffic, or you can be a paid advertiser of Google. Google makes $237 billion from ads. So that they make so much more money because ads are a lot more expensive. So my advice in terms of one of the key strategies is to dominate SEO. Yes, getting into the top 5%. And how do you know you're in the top 5%? You will rank for a minimum of 100 keywords and phrases on page 1 of Google. How do you know this? You use Google Analytics. You find out what keywords you care about and see if you're ranking for 100 or more of those on the top 10 results, which is what we consider page 1. Why page 1? Nobody goes to page 2. So if you're on page 1, now you are in the game as far as those tens of thousands of people who see you for those hundreds of keywords. So dominate SEO. That's one tip. Second tip is all around helping people choose you. Today, reviews are critical. So if you don't have good reviews, let's say you have 2.5 stars or 3.5 stars, or you only have 30 reviews, you have a problem, because people are looking for at least 100 plus reviews, and ideally 4.2, 4.3, even 4.5 plus. So are you constantly getting new reviews? So there, I think the metric is, are you able to get at least 10 or more 5-star Google reviews every month? And that's what I would aim for,
I
as
think
to
too,
the second goal.
throwing in there, make the reviews easy, right? So one of the things you can do, put a UPC code at the front desk, let them scan it when they're in the
Yeah.
office. Put the review in right there, right? When people go home, they start doing the dishes and making dinner and all that stuff. They forget about you. So hi, Dana.
I'm so sorry. I
don't
had a
worry about
power
it.
surge. I'm in
Don't-
Florida, and we had a
My
storm.
goodness.
And
You had
my
another storm?
no, but
Oh,
ever since the storm, we've been getting these power surges. And so
okay.
I had to hook up onto my hotspot.
No worries at
No
all.
worries.
Zero worries, Dana, none. We
Shelly
were
just covered for you. She just finished the
Yeah,
question
we
you were
got
asking.
flowed into the
Perfect.
we left off on the question that Naren had, and we were just talking about the importance of reviews, and Naren was just
Perfect.
talking about how the kind that you would like to have. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. We can hit those.
Good. Okay.
I was going to hit them when you came back, so I think it's probably good flow to hit those right now.
Okay. Let's see. So
If you don't have them, I do.
Tips for new med spa ownership, a dentist in aesthetics. Is that the one that you're thinking of?
No, I've got, so what I've got is, oops, I'm sorry. Of course, I clicked away from that. What percentage of revenue should you spend on marketing is a question. And then another one, they're kind of related, so I'm going to ask them both at once. What is the average cost of a new patient in aesthetic practice? So I think that those are quite two tied together, and probably both of you can address those. Dana, you would have probably some slightly different experiences than Naren, but go ahead.
Yeah, to be honest, I do not know the exact cost per patient to call, and that is something that I probably really need to research. I'm going to estimate it's around $50, anywhere from $30 to $50 currently. It could be more than that in the beginning, but that's kind of my rough estimate of exactly. Naren is probably much more versed on the actual cost.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I notice is practice owners don't know what their cost is. I mean, the thing about marketing is you want to spend the least amount of money to attract a good quality patient. So simple thing is tracking. And I know Shelly talked about front desk asking patients how you found us, but today that's not very accurate because people will tell you what they just saw. For example, you have a huge billboard. Everybody's going to say, I just saw the billboard, right? That's because that's what they remember. It's called the recency effect. Whatever that happened just before they showed up is what they're going to say. So the best way to track today is using call tracking and landing pages. So have separate landing pages, call tracking numbers. So you know exactly how many calls are coming in, and especially new patient calls, and how much you're spending. So let's say you're spending $1,000 and you only got 5 calls. That means your cost of a new patient is $200. Now might be you're doing a CEO and you're spending, let's say $1,000, and now you're getting 25 calls. Now the cost of a new patient is $40. So now that one is costing you $40, the other one is costing you $200, like most smart business people, you will put more resources into the one that's costing you the least and take away money from that's costing you the most, right? Like, for example, if some people are doing print and traditional marketing, their cost might be like $500 a new patient or $1,000 a new patient. Most people will realize very quickly, I don't want to spend $1,000 to get a new patient when I can get a patient for $40. So what they'll do is they'll cut the money going into those kind of print and radio and stuff. But you don't need to take anybody else's word for it. You can use metrics to make that determination. Now, some people they don't love numbers. I mean, I'm the kind of a kid, when I was 5 years old, I would play with numbers and additions and multiplications and stuff. Not 5, I'm exaggerating, maybe when I was 10. But there are some people who, math doesn't come easy for them. But I think knowing this number, which is the cost of a new client, and just zooming into that is very powerful. Otherwise, you could be spending tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in the wrong kind of marketing, because it's very easy to just blow money with marketing. So you want to really keep track of the cost of a new patient.
Yeah, and also you're nurturing the patients that you have. So it's tough because you're paying for that new patient, but you're also nurturing patients, and you really need to do both. And so, but I know that my marketing costs in general have gone down slightly, but I'm still, it's thousands of dollars each month. And then there's things that you don't even realize are marketing that you're spending money on that really are part of it. And I buy print ads, and I don't really expect that much return on investment on my print ads, but I still like to do them because I want my patients to see that, and it kind of vets you in the community.
Makes a total sense. I mean, it's a good, especially there are certain 1 or 2 magazines that a certain demographic of people really pay attention to and read, and to position yourself as, being supported. Let's say it's a magazine that supports a certain demographic, or that, then you are positioning yourself as, we are with this community of people.
When you use those multiple channels, one is supporting the other, right? So if you see that, ideally, what Naren said about we saw the billboard, that's the most recent thing I remember. But ideally, they've seen you in a couple of places. They've seen reviews about you, and hopefully you're putting some kind of referral program in place and encouraging people to refer to you. Because once you hit that ICP and you've got that person, their friends are also your ICPs. So try and get those referrals happening in your practice for sure.
Yeah. So out of the options discussed, which do you think generates the highest return on investment?
Yeah, so the options we touched on are Google Ads, social media ads, SEO, and organic social media definitely is a great option, but it only applies to those people who aspire to be influencers and who are willing to put themselves out there, especially with video content. Especially, as an aesthetic practice owner, you can't just write an article and hope that works on Instagram. It won't. You have to create video content. So if you are not in that influencer category, then I think the 3 options are Google Ads, SEO, and social media ads. In my experience, once SEO is really set up, it typically takes a year for it to really kick in and start really making a big difference. Once you pass that 1 year mark, the cost of SEO would be 20%. So in other words, Google Ads will be 5 times as expensive as SEO. Now, after 2 years, that might be 7 times as more expensive. So in other words, SEO, like you said, will get cheaper and cheaper. Google Ads will get more and more expensive because Google has to make more money to keep its investors happy, and the population of the world is actually shrinking, especially in first world countries. So they have to charge you more to make up the money, because there's no, like, the American population, at least people who are able to afford med spa services, doesn't grow 20% every year. It's pretty much flat. So somehow they have to make more money, and so they charge you more. So Google Ads is 5 to 10 times more expensive depending on how long your SEO program has been running. Social media ads is twice as expensive as Google Ads even. So it is the most expensive of all the digital media options. Print, like you said, ROI perspective, it may not work, but so it could be the most expensive, but you might do it for strategic reasons, maybe to position yourself or win the favor of certain demographics or certain groups of people. So that's my experience. So Google Ads, so if you're spending 100,000 in Google Ads, hopefully a strong SEO program, you can get the same results for 20,000. So you would rather spend 20,000 because that extra 80,000 is, profits to the owner, or money you can now invest in technology and, things like that. So you want to make sure your marketing costs are as low as they can be, because you don't want to spend more than you need to on marketing.
This question is not on our list, but it's a question for you, Naren, because you've talked to so many business owners. What percentage, as a brand new med spa, should new med spas be budgeting as far as percentage of revenue? Because I think that's kind of important for people to maybe know what their budget should be when they first open.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see startups fail a lot. And the reason they fail is most people who start up med spas, don't have a degree in finance, and I don't have a degree in finance, but I bet this is why you need someone like a Wharton, MBA, or a Wharton Business School, or any business school person to help you. And the reason is, when you buy a practice, on day one, you are generating profits, right? In other words, you sign a big check, you walk into this practice, it's making, like the example I was sharing earlier, $1.2 million, and your expenses are 960. That means on day one, you're making 240,000 a year in profit. But a startup has 0 patients, but your expenses are still there. You're paying the rent, you're paying your team, you're paying all those, technology you bought and everything else. So let's say your expenses are $40,000, but you're starting with 0 revenue. So, in the beginning, even if you were to spend 100% of your revenue, 100% of 0 is still 0. So sometimes you may have to spend money you don't have, especially as a startup. So I really think, having done this for 17 years, you need to have a budget for your first 1 or 2 years. If you don't, you're going to fail, so you have to get the help of some business types, some finance types to say, okay, what's my fixed expenses? What's my worst case? So let's say my business is slower than I anticipate. How much money do I need to pay my bills? And in addition to that, how much am I going to invest in marketing? Unfortunately, like Dana said, people don't know you, like you, or trust you when you start. I mean, you don't have a single Google review. Nobody has ever been your client or patient before. Maybe you're coming from some other practice, maybe that might be an advantage, but if you're just starting from scratch, so you have to expect rainy days or challenging days. So I would think of the marketing for year one as an investment, as opposed to a percentage of revenue, because you are not making any money for you to get away with investing percentage of no money you're making or very little money you're making, right? So I would recommend like a budget of 20,000 a year for the first year or two, and then that should really build up your SEO. And once SEO is working, you're going to start seeing a steady flow of patients. But the key is you have to provide an amazing experience. What if those patients come in, they don't like you, and they leave? Now you still have a problem, because it's like you're spending let's say X dollars to get a new patient, but because they are not going to come back and come back and come back, now the cost goes up for you, meaning like you don't have that recurring revenue, which is why you are in business in the first place. So I would say plan on investing 20,000 in year one and year two, and I think by the end of year one, your marketing should at least give you a 5x return on investment. So if you're putting 20,000, it should at least bring in $100,000 worth of patients. And then of course, it's by year two, you don't even have to pay for it, because the 100,000 that it's generating, remember it's a machine, automatically pays for your expenses in year two. So year two, you're pretty much taking some of the money marketing is already making for you and then putting it back in. As opposed to in year one, it's literally coming out of your pocket because you don't have any revenue. So because practice owners don't think this way, they get into trouble. They assume magically everything is going to work out, but this, Dana, I mean, there's no magic in business. Things always will go wrong. I mean, what is the principle? The Pareto's principle, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. It is just the nature of startups and nature of new business. So expect the worst case, plan for it. That way you're not surprised. Because the other thing that happens is if you don't plan for it, you will be really stressed out because you think magic is going to happen and everything will be awesome, and it's not. Now you get stressed. And what happens when you're stressed? You start making bad decisions. You start not being nice to your patients, not being nice to your team members, because you're stressed, right? And that means all the good ones are leaving and it becomes a big mess. So I would say plan for, your first year accordingly and invest accordingly. And I think that's the way to, ensure you're successful.
And I also love this segue into listening to you makes me feel like we need an expert to help guide us. And because it starts sounding like SEO, return on investment, percentages. So I know that the Ekwa is doing a free gift for the attendees where you can book a marketing strategy session with Ekwa and get a comprehensive 12-month digital marketing strategy that's tailor-made for your practice. And I think that, everybody who's in attendance should take advantage of that, even if just to get this information as new practice owners, because it does start, sounding like all of these, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And you do need to think about if you're going to invest this money that you really don't have when you first start because you're, not making revenue yet. So you're taking it out of your pocket. What is going to be that return on your investment? And like you said, it should be at least 5 times that first year. So I think that's really important information. Can you share a little bit more about what they're going to get from the session?
Sure, absolutely. So traditionally, what we would do is we work with offices that need some help, and we go over a marketing review. Now, in this case, these offices aren't necessarily open, so we would go over what we do go over is a lot of the things that we've been talking about, but much more specialized for that person, helping them dig into what that ICP is, and going over exactly what kind of things, the recipe, if you will, and the ingredients for the recipe that Google has. Because when you want to place in SEO, I think that there's a big misconception with a lot of people, and that it just means put a whole bunch of words on my webpage, and that means that I will naturally rise to the top because I said Botox 75 times. No, that's not quite how it works, right? So there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. We'll go over all of those ingredients and how you can start to achieve some of those right out of the gate. So whether you decide to go with Ekwa or not, I do think there's a lot of value here, because we'll let you know what those ingredients are. Not that we don't want to go over them today. We have lots of podcasts where we do, but there's not time today to go over them. You're welcome to book one of those, and you can book with either myself or with Lila. I've got a lot of experience with new offices. Lila has a heck of a lot of experience with marketing and how to launch new offices. So I hope that sheds some light on it, Dana.
Thank you very much. I think that's very generous and really useful information for anyone to educate themselves. Naren, what key metrics should we track to measure the effectiveness of our marketing efforts? I think you touched on this a little bit already.
Absolutely. So one metric, remember we talked about if you want that machine and the lowest cost is a SEO, one of the metrics that I would look for to see if my SEO is doing well is how many keywords and phrases am I ranking for on top 10 results, meaning page 1. And that number should be minimum 100. Like that's what we see with all of our clients within 12 months. And we have clients who have been with us for multiple years. Some of them are ranking for 800 keywords and phrases on page 1. So I'm not saying 100 is going to be forever, but that should be the minimum that you should aim for within 12 months. The other metric I would really look at is, remember we talked about tracking and setting up call tracking. How many new patient calls am I getting a month? So you need to know that, because if your number of new patient calls are not growing over time, like Dana alluded to, marketing is not going to become more and more effective. In other words, the cost of marketing will go down over time. Instead, it'll go up. So you want to keep track of how many new patients are you getting, and is that cost of a new patient going down over time? The third metric I would be tracking is, give me 1 second. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, number of Google reviews. See, every practice has to work on this. You don't need a marketing company to do this. You can do this. Of course, there are tips and techniques and tools that might help you, but you want to get at least 10 Google reviews a month, every single month. So think of it like, you pay your people every month, right? Imagine you have a business and some months they get paid and some months they won't show up, right? Same way, like in 2024, if you are not consistently getting high quality Google reviews, you will have problems. So just because you do great work, that's still not enough. What's the phrase we hear sometimes, happy clients will not tell anybody, but unhappy clients will tell 10 people. So you have to kind of nudge those happy clients, make it easy for them. I know Shelly talked about, QR codes and, giving it to them when they're happy in your office versus they go home and they'll say they'll do it, but they won't because they are busy, right? So there are techniques, and we use a tool called Grow My Reviews, which is a tool that allows you to text them immediately when they're happy. So while they are literally in your office, they get the text with the link, they press it, they write the review right then and there. 10 is not too much. So let's say you open, 20 days a month, 5 days a week times 4 times a week, 4 weeks a month. That's one review every other day. it's not a lot. You just have to get serious about it. You have to, have somebody who we call a champion who's driving it, and their job should be to, ask and then send that link to at least 2 to 3 people every day. So if you do that, you will easily get 10 reviews a month.
Make it part of the habits that you do when you
Yeah.
it's part of every day. It's not something, hey, we're going to do a burst on reviews. Every day it's part of my what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like a takeaway. If you just do that from this event, this event and the time you spent is definitely worth it. And forget about everything else, because that doesn't cost you a dime, just costs a little bit of discipline and, just stick to itness.
And you do have to ask, I feel like, because people, you just have to remind them and they're happy to share, but it is a little bit of an effort. So last couple thoughts, Shelly. What are some key mistakes that practices make when they start, and how can they avoid them? And then we're going to go into last thoughts as we wrap up.
Yeah, and it's really hurts when you see them happen, right? And you try to warn. So first of all, I want to commend everybody who's here. If you're thinking about doing something, you're doing the studying up front, you're doing all the information gathering, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Don't make this your last stop. Keep doing those kinds of things. With that, I'm going to say that people don't spend enough time in the planning stage. They don't think it through. We've got a great idea, and it's really easy to take the pretty new red balloon and run with it. But you got to make sure you understand everything about it, that we talked about budgets. I have actually watched people open full practices with no real budget, no tangible budget. We're just going to let it come together. Things, Naren, how often do they just come together? No, they don't. So spend the time planning it. If you think you're overdoing it, I promise you, you're not. Not understanding your direct competition and realistic pricing. You need to know what the people are charging you around you. And when I say realistic pricing, people's minds immediately go to that I mean that they're charging too much. I actually see the opposite. People charge too little. They launch with ridiculous specials. They bring in patients that are not the patients that they really want. Really understand your pricing and where you're willing to go. If you say you're going to have a special for a week, have a special for a week. Don't keep it rolling for 6 to 8 months just to keep people coming in. And do understand, if you're going to open a bricks and mortar shop, is there a bricks and mortar shop on every corner near you? Is that the wisest location? You have to pay attention to that. And I know it sounds really rudimentary, but again, you watch people ending up with that. I'm going to go back to the ICP and say not positioning yourself correctly, I think, is something that I see people doing. Have all the specials and sales you want, but if you don't have the right person, again, these are things that I can't say enough. If you don't have the right person seizing on those opportunities, there's not a lot of point in it. And then finally, Dana, I'm going to finish with, I'm going to go back to the front desk. I'm going to say human touch is really important. A lot of people figure I'm going to do automated follow-ups and automated text messages for appointment reminders. Those are terrific. They really, really are. But your patients want to hear your front desk voice, right? When you're rocking and rolling and you've got patients coming in like crazy, sure, lean on that technology. But at the very beginning for an appointment confirmation, how beautiful it is to hear somebody's words and, hi, you were in to see us 2 weeks ago and we know everything about that appointment, right? So I think that those are mistakes that I've watched happen over and over again.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. I feel like such wonderful information tonight about maybe turning browsers into buyers on the website. I love that thought. So Naren, last thoughts before I don't know if we're going to have time for the Q&A, but I would love to hear your last thoughts.
Thank you, Dana. First, I want to thank you for what you do for the business of aesthetic community and hosting this event, and obviously the wisdom you bring, because you are not saying something you read in a book. This is real life for you. You've been doing it for 15 years and you are in a very competitive market in Southern Florida. So if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So I really appreciate you willing to share everything you know and contribute and support the business of aesthetics community. My final thoughts are, business in some sense is really, I don't want to use the word simple, but there are some fundamentals to business. We talked about the patient experience. We talked about, a strong marketing engine. We talked about, don't try to be everything to everyone, but try to really be you and try to really define who you are. We talked about team and culture. So those are the fundamentals. So I love this quote. This is by a gentleman by the name of Chet Holmes. He passed away, several years ago, a few decades ago, but he's an amazing guy. And he said one quote that changed my life. He said, successful people don't do hundreds of things or thousands of things. They do 10 things 10,000 times. So what are those 10 things you have to just keep leaning into? Marketing is one of them, because remember, a strong marketing machine means even if you're not focused on it, it's driving you new patients. Another one is, this whole idea around patient experience. So are you training your people? Are you auditing your people? Are you continuing to retrain them? So you are consistently providing that patient experience. So find out what those 10 things are for your success, and just lean into those again and again and again. So that's my final thought. And finally, like we already alluded to, startups are not easy. I would be lying to you that if I told you that, startups is just a breeze and you close your eyes and everything will be magic. I mean, many startups fail, like 80% fail. So go in with the plan, think it through, expect the worst. That way you're not surprised. Most people assume everything will just go perfectly. That's not going to, because remember, nobody knows you, likes you, and trusts you. So till that happens, the tide is against you. The wind is against you. So you have to plan for that wind being against you for a while. And if you plan, you won't be stressed and you won't become your worst enemy. That's what I see happening a lot of times. People who don't plan become their own worst enemy. And they drive away the partners that Shelly talked about. They drive away the key employees, Shelly talked about, because those are people that can really help you succeed. So you don't want to do that. So plan, be thoughtful, but at the same time, be smart with money. Like, don't do a $500,000 build out when you don't even know like how to make $1. So spend those unnecessary things once you have made it. Once you are profitable, then go and invest and get a better location, or do that build out or buy that expensive technology. So be stingy with money, especially those fixed expenses that are not driving your revenue. Be stingy, because at the beginning you're starting with zero.
Yeah, great advice to come up with that business plan and study it and study marketing before you open, so that you're setting yourself up for success. So to close tonight, can you share where to find you guys? And then there we go. Now that you know how to market your new practice, take a moment and think, how do I make sure I have the marketing strategy? How do I make sure my landing pages, and book that free marketing strategy with Ekwa. So I want to thank you to our wonderful panel of speakers this evening. And thank you to all that joined us live. I want to take a moment to thank our listeners, and a big thank you goes out to our sponsors, Ekwa Marketing. And don't forget to make use of that offer by heading over to the www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM/ scan the QR code on the screen. We hope this webinar has provided you with the tools and knowledge you need to successfully market your new clinic, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Have a wonderful evening and night.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's been a true pleasure to really, truly meet you and interact tonight.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's so nice to see you again. And of
You
course,
too.
thanks to all the audience and the team who put it all together.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Naren, for all you do to help business owners through all of the communities.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsor, Ekwa Marketing. Would you like to join our growing group of aesthetic industry experts and get featured on the Business of Aesthetics podcast? Or do you know someone who would love to share their strategies for growth in the aesthetic business, providing quality patient care, or their clinical expertise? Head over to www.businessofesthetics.org podcast show and apply to be featured as a guest on the show. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. If you would like to engage with today's speakers or any of our past speakers, join our Facebook group or LinkedIn group by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Thank you, and have a great day.